What's up, guys? It's Toad back with you for the final NFL weekly breakdown video. I mean, I'm going to still do the NFL videos during the playoffs, of course. I'll still do a weekly playoff breakdown video, but this is the last regular season NFL breakdown video. So this is week 18, final week of the season, and this is a week that's a little bit crazy, man. I got 3 plays, but it's a minefield. Hopefully these plays are going to be good and they're going to get there, but we'll see. So week 18, it really becomes kind of a crapshoot, and you're trying to figure out motivation, but you're not only trying to gauge motivation, but you're trying to gauge almost anti-motivation in a way. So you got like a few different scenarios that you need to look for in week 18, which I'm going to go through every single one of these games and talk about the scenarios that are involved in these. And we have 2 games tomorrow, by the way, which are both AFC North games are tomorrow. Again, because AFC North is just getting the spotlight, and they're the division that's on Hard Knocks in season this year and whatever. They were supposed to be the best conference in football, and it wound up being the NFC North instead. But what can you do? But you have a few different scenarios. So you have teams where their situation is really straightforward, and it's if they win, they get in. So there are teams that are in that situation. There are fewer of those this year, though, but there are, I think, at least a couple, which I'm going to go through. And those teams, you might think that you want to be on those teams because it's motivation, but I think you kind of want to go opposite those teams, because those teams, it's like the pressure is all on them. And because everybody knows that that team controls their own destiny, and literally if they win, they're in. And that is the case with like the Denver Broncos is the one team that is really the case this year. Denver Broncos and New Orleans, not New Orleans, not the New Orleans Saints. They have no chance. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the New Orleans Saints, Broncos and Bucks. So those 2 teams are win and in, but when they're a team that's in that scenario, the line is like really skewed in their direction. So you're really not getting any value on that team. And really you're actually getting value going against that team. And you tend to see a situation where that team might be favored by way too much. I'll get into it when I talk about those 2 teams, which is the case, I think, with both of those teams, maybe. And they tend to play it a little bit closer to the vest, and maybe the pressure is on them a little bit because they really don't want to make mistakes, because they know just you win and you're in, basically. So we'll talk about those in a second. One of those scenarios might actually be a little bit different than the other, actually. So talk about those 2 games. Then you have other situations where you have certain teams that need to win. It is a must win, but they don't control their own destiny. So not only do they need to win, but other teams need to lose in addition to that. So those teams, the pressure is on them a little bit less, actually. So those teams, you actually can find better value playing on those teams a lot, and they tend to play a little bit looser, and they'll come out and just kind of like break out all the stops because they know they don't control their own destiny. So really they just come out looser. All they know is, well, all we can control is that we win, and then we have to let the chips fall where they may, basically. So that's going to be like Cincinnati Bengals, Miami Dolphins. They both need to win, but they also need like the Denver Broncos to lose. So those teams tend to be a little bit of a better shot. Then you have teams that are not locked into their seed, but they're like in the playoffs, and all they can do is advance or drop seeding. So that's like, I believe that applies to the Chargers. There are a few other teams, Chargers, Houston Texans. I want to say Green Bay, Washington. There are a few teams. So those teams are all in the playoffs, but their seeding can change, but they're also not trying to win their division anymore. So those teams, I don't think that that's really a motivating factor. So that I think you could just kind of throw that out. Like whether a team is a 5 seed or a 6 seed, I don't really think it matters, even though I will talk about kind of the specific situations that we have there. I think Pittsburgh is one of those teams as well. So that tends to not really be a motivating factor. So you don't really want to factor that in. And then, of course, you have the teams that are just completely out of it. And those teams tend to be the teams you kind of want to look towards in week 18, because those teams are playing their last game of the season. They know they're not going to play next week in the playoffs. So those teams, you can see them kind of actually go all out and play a lot looser, especially if they're playing against a team where they can like spoil that team's season, or it's just a game at home and they want to like send their fans out on the right note. Whatever the case may be, we'll talk about those, but those teams tend to be the teams you actually want to play on more so, and you tend to be getting more value on those 2 teams, on those teams. So I think those are basically the scenarios. And then you also do have certain games are really there's kind of only almost one game this week, which is the Lions and Vikings, where it's a game that really matters to both teams as far as like it has huge implications. Like that has 1 seed and winner of the division implications there. So that's a situation where obviously both those teams are going to show up. So that becomes more of a straight handicap rather than a gay handicap where both of those teams are going to show up and play like it's a game that they both want to win, like a regular big matchup like during the season or whatever. Or really it's going to be like a playoff type of game, really playoffs. So that's what you want to look for in all these types of games. And then I'm going to go over all these games have different like personnel changes. So that's the other thing, of course, because you have teams that are already in and they can't advance their seeding, and those teams rest their starters. So you get all these like really skewed lines. So I'll talk about those too. And I actually tend to think that a lot of times you don't want to play on those teams. Like you might think that the line might over adjust to accommodate for that, because a lot of times that team will be playing against a team that needs to win to get in or whatever. But in a lot of those situations, the team that's resting players, the public's going to think that the line is way too big, like on the other side or something, and come in and still think there's value, like on the Kansas City Chiefs or something like that. Like, oh my God, they're a 10-point underdog. That's way too extreme, even if they are benching their starters or whatever. And you'll see like the public still kind of want to come in on that side. And in some of those cases, you do see that other team will wind up like kind of covering in a lot of those cases I've found. So those are tough handicaps. I'm going to go through all of it. Libertim, what's up, man? You told me on Twitter that you were going to be here. Yeah, what's up, man? You're late, but you haven't really missed anything yet. I'm just kind of shooting the shit. And then I'm going to get into all these games. And I've got Nevada, New Mexico on. New Mexico, college basketball here. New Mexico just blew their lead here. Oh, I know. Yeah, I'm doing it at midnight, and you're the only one in my chat. I got more people in when I was like dual streaming and streaming to the Tower Game channel as well, but everybody got so pissed off at me for doing it, even though it was Todd Lobs' idea in the first place to do it to get me more views and whatever. But basically everybody else was like basically the Tower Game fans mostly were like, fuck you. And I'm kind of like, fuck you, but I don't know. So now I'm not doing that. So hopefully my usual viewers will still find me here. I did go 1-1 today, by the way. I'm trying to be selective. My college basketball play, really not great. I love that I had a bunch of college basketball leans that wound up being correct, but then my actual college basketball play on Iona did not get there. So that was great. But I did win on the hockey play that I had on the Chicago Blackhawks, even though I was going against what the market was kind of indicating on that one. I still wound up getting the win with the Blackhawks somewhat easily. So 1-1, very, very small loss today. I'm still up very slightly in the first 3 days of the year. So want to continue that. We got NFL, man. And of course, there are going to be a lot of sports being played tomorrow. So I don't know what I want to do about college basketball, because I said I wanted to do like weekly, like college basketball specials now that we have like conference play starting. But do I want to come back at like 2 a.m. after I break down that whole card and try to talk about that? I don't know, man. It is a lot. And this is going to be like probably at least an hour of NFL here. So I'm going to get into it and hope that I don't take that long to do this. So tomorrow's games, like I said, we have 2 games on Saturday. There have been no games on Thursday finally. So the Thursday night games are over. The midweek, like Christmas games and weird shit, that's all over. There were no New Year's Day games today because that's reserved for college football for the most part. But what we do have is AFC North teams all playing. And some of these teams, like the Ravens and the Steelers, they're actually coming into these games with extra rest now, because they just they last played last Wednesday on Christmas, so now they have extra rest here. So that may be a little bit of a factor coming into these games after they played a brutal stretch. Both of those teams played like 3 games in 11 days because they both played on Christmas. So now at least that stretch is over for them, and maybe they'll kind of be able to bounce back from that a little bit, although the Ravens didn't even do badly in that stretch. I think the Ravens won all 3 of those games, actually. So it didn't even really matter for them. But Browns-Ravens is the first game up, and this is maybe the least interesting game on the entire football slate, to be honest. It's the largest spread that we've seen this entire season, even though this does have some ramifications because the division is still up for grabs here in the AFC North. The Ravens, I believe, have a 1-game lead over the Steelers. But if the Ravens win this game, they will clinch the division. I believe if they lose and the Steelers win, then the Steelers would actually win the division. Because I think the Steelers have the tiebreaker because the teams are 1-1 against each other, and then it comes down to conference record, whatever the hell it is. So I think the Steelers actually have the tiebreaker against the Ravens, but it probably won't come down to that because, as you can see, the Ravens are up from 16-20 hosting the Cleveland Browns. I mean, this is absurd, man. I mean, this is the largest spread we've seen all year. Public is still coming in on the Ravens, 67% of tickets, 66% of the cash. I'll just tell you right now, I'm not going to lay 20 points with the Ravens, okay? I mean, it's just gone too far. Even though I know the Browns beat the Ravens earlier this year in Cleveland, the Browns, the only games they tend to actually show up for are games against their division foes, and those are kind of like a couple of the only wins the Browns have this year. Well, at home against the Ravens and at home against the Steelers, they won those 2 games. Nate, what's up, man? I hope I'm not related to that guy, even though, how do you know I'm Italian, man? You know I'm Italian, or you're just guessing? Because I actually am, but my Italian family name is not Mangione, so I'm not related to that guy, hopefully, even though I am Toad and he is Luigi, so we are both from the Mario universe. Okay. Back to this. Yeah, Browns, Ravens. I mean, like I said, 20 points is just, obviously you're not getting any value laying the points of the Ravens here, man. I mean, this could be a game where even though the Ravens, they know that basically if they win, they're going to win the division, but you might see the Ravens like not pull out all the stops, even though, like I said, they do know that the Browns beat them earlier this year. But I think the Ravens are probably just going to try to get in and get out and not get hurt because they know even if they don't win the division, they're going to be in the playoffs. But they're very likely going to win this game, even if they don't put in like a full effort here. So public is laying the points of the Ravens. I would not do it, but I mean, do I want any part of the Browns here? No, I don't really. And as far as the Browns are concerned, I saw who they were putting in at quarterback, and now I already forget because it seemed like it was a situation where I'm like, come on, man, it's the last game of the year. You know the crowd wants Jameis Winston back in there, right? But he is not going to be there. I mean, part of the reason why the line is where it is because it's not going to be Winston. I mean, I think if it was Winston, I think at the very least, this line would be like 3 or 4 points shorter than it is, but I think it's not going to be DTR either. Really, it should be Winston. Like I said, I mean, NFL fans like Winston, man. I mean, he's really fun to watch, has a really good arm. He's very talented. He's entertaining. I like the guy a lot. I mean, they just keep not wanting his whole career, man. These teams don't want to put him out there because he throws interceptions, but it's like DTR throws even more interceptions than he does, basically. DTR has no like ability to do what Jameis Winston can. So, like, why would you do that? But the Browns, they're not playing either of them this week, I don't think. I'm going to look at their roster right now, and I don't even remember who they're playing this week. Let me see. At quarterback, I mean, they're going with Bailey Zappi, former New England Patriot and Western Kentucky quarterback. He's going to be their quarterback this week, as far as I know. As far as this handicap, I don't even think it really matters who the quarterback is for the Browns unless it's Winston. Then if it's Winston, then yeah, you got to downgrade, or really you got to upgrade the Browns a little bit if it is Winston here, but it won't be. I think it's going to be Zappi. Is he better than DTR? I'd say probably, yeah, because basically everybody is better than DTR. Is it going to matter as far as this handicap is concerned? No. The total's down from 42.5 to 41.5. So the odds makers are telling you they don't expect a lot of scoring. I'm sure that they're not expecting basically any offense out of the Browns here. But when you have a 20-point spread and the total's only 41.5, that's a difficult spread to cover, man. So if I was going to play this game, I would only take the 20 points of the Browns just because it's so extreme. And like, what was the line in this first game between the Ravens and the Browns here? I mean, I guarantee it was not even close to that. Yeah, it was 7.5. So that would indicate that the Ravens should probably be closer to about a 14-point favorite or so here, 13, 14. Although I think that was when the Browns had Deshaun Watson was playing back then probably. So I don't even know. So maybe you have to downgrade going from Deshaun Watson down to Bailey Zappi. Maybe that's a few points as well. So even so, the Ravens should not be favored by 20 points in this one. I think I've said too much about this game. This game is crap. I'm not playing this game. It's not worth even talking about this game to this extent. Yes, I have said I'm Italian. I'm nowhere near as handsome as Luigi. Yeah, thank you, sir. I have been using these weights in the background there. I mean, they only go up to like 40 pounds, though. And then the next game is far more interesting. Of course, Bengals Steelers is the night game at 8 p.m. Bengals are up from a 1.5-point favorite to a 2.5-point favorite. It's teetering on being 3. And of course, this is a situation where you would think that the public would see this and be like, wait a minute, I'm getting points with the Pittsburgh Steelers who have the better record at home. Like, you'd think that the public might think there's value there in taking the points of the Steelers, but they're not doing that. 72% of tickets are coming in on the Bengals. I think it's just that the public loves offense. They love Joe Burrow. The Bengals have won, I think, 4 games in a row now, and the Steelers have lost 3 games in a row. So the public is very recency biased. So the public seems to like the Bengals here. Again, they like offense and they like recency, and that's all on the side of the Bengals here. And they like the storyline. I think the public kind of wants to see the Bengals in the playoffs. And I think the NFL probably wants to see the Bengals get in as well. So the NFL might really start pulling something screwy here, but I don't see it happening because here's the thing. The Bengals, they need help to get in. So one thing that I said at the top of the show is that when a team isn't really they're in a must win, but it's not win and you're in, right? So the Bengals, they have to win this game. They're going to be eliminated if they don't win, but they don't control their own destiny. So winning this game is not enough. So they need to win this game and then sit back, and they need Denver to lose. And I think they actually also need Miami to lose. So they really need a lot of things to go their way here. I think Miami actually has a tiebreaker against them, and Denver is ahead of them right now. So that's what's going on there. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is the case. So the Bengals can kind of show up and play looser in this game because of that. But then the issue is the Steelers may have reason to show up in this game as well. So there are a couple of different motivating factors for the Steelers here as well. One of them is dependent on the outcome of the first game, and that's if the Ravens happen to lose that game, although that's not going to happen. But if the Ravens were to lose that game, then the Steelers could win this game and win the division. So that would, if that happens, if the Ravens actually lose that game, you'll see this line move towards the Steelers because it's going to be a motivating factor on the side of the Steelers if they can actually win and win the division. We don't think that's going to happen, though. So the odds makers are adjusting the line like that's not a possibility, basically. I kind of agree with them. I don't think it is. So assume that the Ravens are going to win this game. Probably they will. And then if you do assume that, then the Steelers, then all they really have left to play for is, well, 2 things. Like, they might show up just because they want to spoil the Bengals, right? So there are a few motivating factors here, man. And that, I wouldn't overlook that as being a factor, right? Like, the Steelers might be able to spoil the Bengals season, and the Bengals are a rival of theirs. So that may be a reason why the Steelers would show up, but I don't really know about that. And then the other factor is the Steelers can change their seeding. But like I said, that's not really that much of a motivating factor, man. In the final week, Steelers, even though it is the difference between playing the Baltimore Ravens or playing the Houston Texans. So that's really what we have going on here. So Steelers and Chargers are both in the mix here as far as the 5 and 6 seeds. They can flip 5 and 6 seeds. So the 5 seed is going to wind up playing the 4 seed Houston Texans on the road at Houston. The 6 seed is going to wind up having to play the Baltimore Ravens, assuming the Ravens win this game, which they should. So that would make the Ravens a 3 seed. Then that means that the 6 seed has to go to the Ravens. So that is a difference. I mean, I think both of these teams know that they'd rather face Houston than the Ravens in the first playoff game. But is that enough of a motivating factor to play in this final week? I'm not sure about that, man. And is spoiling the Bengals season even enough of a factor? I don't know, because the Steelers might be thinking, well, the Bengals are a more dangerous team than Denver is. So maybe we want them out, and because they're a hated rival. But then again, I kind of don't think so, man. I think your number one priority here, like if the Ravens win, then it comes down to, like I said, the Steelers' motivating factors are how much do they care about spoiling the Bengals season? How much do they care about seeding between the 5 and the 6 seed? And I actually think it's kind of minimal. I think that you might see the Steelers actually, if the Ravens win, this line might go further towards the Bengals, to be honest, because if the Ravens win, that completely takes the Steelers winning the division off the table. And then I think you actually might see the Steelers may actually even come in and like start resting some of these guys, because their main priority at that point would be, we need to get ready for the playoffs and we don't want to get players injured. And TJ Watt has kind of been dealing with injuries recently as well. So I'm not going to play this game, but if you were to force me to lean in this game, I would actually lean to the Bengals, even though it looks like it's probably too many points to be laying 3 on the road like this. The odds makers are definitely factoring in some of that motivation there. So it looks like it is too much. But if it was like, if it's still below 3 and you're laying like 2.5 with the Bengals, I would actually lean that way because, again, the Bengals also aren't in that win and you're in scenario where they control their own destiny. They don't. So I think they could show up and play a little bit looser as well. I mean, they do have the momentum right now. So I don't think the public is actually getting this one wrong. So slight lean to the Bengals in that one. I'm not going to play it though, but I think that's just the way the motivation goes there. So yeah, I disagree with you, Tim, on that one, but not strongly at all. Yeah, the public loves thorough Joe Burrow. I've never heard that. His nickname is Joe Cool is the one that I've heard. Yeah, Cool Joe Cool, Kingslayer. I mean, I've never really been a fan of Burrow. I kind of just think he's a douche, but I mean, he's a good quarterback. And I mean, the thing about the Bengals, if you really want to, I mean, I'm talking all about motivation here, but if you really want to start handicapping what these games actually are, I mean, well, first of all, I should have mentioned that the Browns, I'm not sure that they're going to be completely held off the board there because the Ravens defense, even though they've been playing better recently, they're still not as good a defense as we remember the Ravens being. They're not as good as last year with McDonald gone as their defensive coordinator, and they lost a few of their defensive players, including, I believe, Patrick Queen, who was on the Steelers now. So you may, with the Browns not using DTR quarterback, you might see the Browns actually at least score something in that game. So I don't know about that. Bengals, obviously, we know the Bengals are all offense and they have no defense. But again, if it comes down to motivation, Bengals should be able to score in that game. I mean, you would have to think, especially if the Steelers are going to start playing with a little bit less intensity, if the game doesn't wind up mattering as much to them if the Ravens win, which may be the case. So we may actually wind up seeing 2 games not be that interesting there tomorrow. Burrow went full Ellen DeGeneres. Yeah, he has a very lesbian look there. Scoreboard, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Hope everybody's doing well here. Scoreboard, Nate, Tim, all you guys. TJ Watt is always hurt. I believe he was not in the was he? Oh no, he was. He was hurt in the playoffs last year too, right? Like he missed the game against Buffalo, I think, or was that not the case? Did he play? I don't remember. It's all kind of a blur in my mind here, man. All right, let's go to Sunday's games here. First one up on the card here is the Saints and the Buccaneers. We know, as I mentioned at the top of the show, the situation here. So this is one of the other, really the only. So the thing about the difference between the AFC and the NFC is the AFC has 3 teams that are fighting for one playoff spot. So the Bengals, Broncos, and Miami are all fighting for that one final playoff spot, the last wild card, the 7. The 6 other teams are all set in the AFC as far as they're all in some capacity or another. The NFC is even less. So there's a lot less chaos this year than there's usually a lot more chaos in this final week. The NFC, every team is set except for the winner of the NFC South. So all 3 wildcard teams they've clinched playoff spots. It's just that their seeding might shuffle a little bit. So the only playoff spot that isn't decided yet is the winner of the worst division of football, the NFC South, which is the Buccaneers are atop the division by 1 game. And I believe the Falcons actually have the tiebreaker against them. So the thing is, the Falcons have beaten the Buccaneers twice, I think. So the Falcons are a game behind the Buccaneers now, though, because they lost and didn't cover. Thanks a lot, guys. When I had them +4 in that overtime loss that they had against Washington there. The Buccaneers, if they win this game, they clinch the division and they're in, and they get the 4 seed. If they lose, then the Falcons have a chance, and the Falcons could beat Carolina, and then they would win because they would pull into a tie with the Buccaneers. They have the tiebreaker against the Buccaneers after beating them twice. So the Falcons would actually knock out the Buccaneers and take the 4 seed and get in. The Buccaneers are probably going to win. I mean, they're hosting the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are unbelievably injured right now. Saints have no Derek Carr, so they're down to whatever quarterback they're using. I think they're still using who are they even using right now? They're using I don't even know. Spencer Rattler, I think, the former South Carolina quarterback. I think he's still the guy that they're using there, but who even knows? They've been using that Hayner guy too. No idea who the quarterback is going to be for the Saints. I don't know if it matters as far as the handicap is concerned. Alvin Kamara, their best offensive player, star running back, he's hurt as well. Chris Olave seemed like he was almost going to come back last week, but he did not. So can keep an eye on that. I guess I don't think that would affect the handicap very much either. If he does play in this game, he might. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to even bother doing that in a game that doesn't matter a whole lot. If they're going to try to rush him back. Rashid Shaheed, their second wide receiver, is not coming back. He's hurt for the season. Chris Olave is the number one wide receiver, of course. And I believe they're still without Taysom Hill, their multi-threat tight end who can run the football and throw it as well. So Saints are massively, massively injured here, man. But again, because the Buccaneers are in that situation where it's win and you're in and you control your own destiny, you're laying way too many points with the Buccaneers here, man. Up from 13 after 14. They're very, very public. 95% of tickets and cash. I don't think there's any value in laying 2 touchdowns with the Buccaneers in this one. I think at the very least, the Saints may at least come out and play with some motivation here, man, to try to finish the season on a winning note, and they have a chance to spoil the Buccaneers season. And, these teams in this division still hate each other. So the Saints may show up just for that reason, man. It's a division rival. They have a chance to potentially knock them out of the playoffs. So I think the Saints may try to show up and play for that reason. And of course, you get down to it, man. I mean, these players are still playing for their jobs, man. So they still are going to show up for that reason. These teams that are out of the playoffs, they don't know where they're going to be next year, a lot of these guys. So these guys want to show up and they want to play well in the final week because they are still competing for jobs. So TJ, yeah, I think he did miss that game as well. So I would only lean to taking the points to the Saints here. Not a play for me, but from a value standpoint, and because the pressure is going to be on Tampa basically knows they just have to come in, show up, get out of here, win the game, and then focus on the playoffs. You don't get anything from style points, man. This is not college football, so you just need to win the game. So you're asking them to win by such a huge margin. I'm not going to do it, even though, of course, the motivation is there, but you're paying a huge price for it. Tampa did win at New Orleans earlier this year, I believe. I believe it was a blowout score, if I remember correctly. Where was that game? 51-27. This is a game that was actually kind of crazy where New Orleans only scored in the second quarter, outscored Tampa 27-7 in the second quarter, and then didn't score again. But I don't think there's much you can take away from this game. Rashid Shaheed was in the game. Kamara was in the game. I believe, was Derek Carr playing? No, Spencer Rattler was actually the quarterback in this game. So he, I believe, will be playing in this one. So he did play the Buccaneers in that first game at the very least. So he at least has some games under his belt now. So at least for him, he's not coming into this game totally cold. So, and that game was a pretty close line. I think it was like Tampa was only a 2.5 road favorite. So even if you factor in all the injuries, I don't think this line should be where it is here. Probably should be about, I would guess 10 or 11 might be a more fair line here. Andrew, what's up, man? Sports related chat. Yes, thank you, sir. Any given Sunday, that's what's his name? Oliver Stone, right? I have no brain anymore. Yeah, that's one of his movies. Yeah, I remember that movie from back in the day. 8 Men Out, about the Chicago Black Sox scandal, right? The Chicago White Sox, yeah, with Shoeless Joe, the Black Sox scandal. I've not actually seen 8 Men Out. I have seen Any Given Sunday, which Any Given Sunday, like Oliver Stone, like he kind of turned it into like a war movie, and he really depicted like football as being pretty violent and brutal, which I think is accurate and a good thing. I think we've kind of gotten away from that, man. Let's get back to the glory days of violent football. All right. Next game up here. And by the way, Saints Bucks, I mean, that total's low again, down from 44 to 43.5, because you got to account for the fact the Saints are pretty weak offensively with all those injuries. So it's like, how many points are they really going to be able to score? I don't know. But Tampa has been running the ball a lot too. So you might see Tampa try to just kind of slow the game down, not make mistakes, run the football a lot. So it could be a lower scoring game, which again is going to kind of make it more difficult for Tampa to get over that, to cover that big number there. Will, what's up? Thank you, man. None of your business. What's up, man? Yeah, Al Pacino was in that movie. Yeah, Any Given Sunday. That is true. I forget who else was in that. Who was the main, the main like quarterback there. Al Pacino's the coach. I don't know why it's slipping my mind who the main actor is there for the quarterback in that movie. I can't remember now. You guys could shout it out in the chat. I haven't seen that movie in so long, man. Probably watched it in like the early 2000s, maybe. When did it come out? I want to say early 2000s is when I watched it. It was not too long after it came out, whenever that was. The Black Stroke guy. Which guy is that? But the black guy from Different Strokes, Gary Coleman, everyone, was the quarterback, the midget quarterback. And no, it was I really don't even know who you mean. I do know who you mean. Jamie Foxx, right? Which, by the way, Jamie Foxx, it's a pretty bizarre situation. I think P. Diddy tried to murder him. I think he did not have a vaccine-related injury, because that was what everybody was saying. Oh, it was the vax. Jamie Foxx, Jamie Vax, whatever. I actually think that P. Diddy tried to kill him. And I mean, I don't want to get my channel nuked or whatever. You can go listen to Cat Williams on this, the comedian, because he has inside information about this. I think P. Diddy actually did something to Jamie Foxx, man. 1999. All right. Yeah. Busiest times on the stream. Yeah. Early in the morning. Yeah. You guys, I mean, it's the weekend. You guys are all degenerates. You want to hear about NFL. We're on the Sunday slate here. I talked about the first Sunday game. I got to get to these games, man. We're still in the 1 o'clock slate here. Only a couple games in the 1 o'clock slate, a few in the 1 o'clock slate. Actually, there are a few more down on the card. Maybe I'll go still in chronological order here. I was going to say that's not enough, because all 32 teams are playing here. On the schedule makers, by the way, try to split the games up so that the teams that are like battling each other for spots kind of tend to be in the same time slot. Except Cincinnati is not, but whatever. And I guess Steelers, Ravens kind of aren't. Bills, Patriots is the next game up. Bills are down from 5.5 to 3. They were actually down to like 2.5, and now it's gone back up a little bit to 3 with juice. So I don't know why the line's moving up a little bit further now. 82% of tickets, 85% of the cash. This is one of those games where I think the public is going to look at this and not be considering, like, the public never like weighs the fact that, oh yeah, the Bills, they're locked into the 2 seed, so they're not going to be playing their starters in this game for the most part. Okay, so that's why the line is what it is, because the public, I mean, you have to think there's something up with this line if you're the public, right? Like, how could you possibly think that the books are letting you lay like a field goal with the Bills against the Patriots here? But again, the public is coming in on that side. 82% of the tickets, 85% of the cash. There's no way that I would join them in this one. I mean, this is one of those situations where the Bills have nothing to play for. They're the 2 seed. They're locked into it. They can't fall out of it. They can't advance. I'm pretty sure that's the case. So they are going to be putting in Mitch Trubisky. Everybody is going to be their quarterback in this game, except Josh Allen is going to start the game because he's going for some like really crazy consecutive games started record or something, 150 something games in a row, something like that. So he's going to start the game. He's going to take like a few snaps, maybe play. I don't know if he's even going to play a full. He probably won't even play a full series because you don't want to get him hurt. He'll go out there. He'll start the game. He might even take one snap, hand the ball off, and then that's considered a start. He'll be out of the game, and it's going to be Mitch Trubisky for the Bills in this one. The Bills are basically going to be using their backups in this game, so very hard to handicap as far as how their backups are going to do. Patriots, I mean, the Patriots are going to show up. It's their final home game. They played pretty well against the Bills in Buffalo 2 weeks ago, and the Bills were in a spot where I think the Bills really didn't care about that game very much. And I think the Bills are also really not going to care that much about this game either, because they're getting ready for the playoffs, and they're going to be playing in the first week as the 2 seed, hosting whoever the 7 seed is going to be. So again, I would only lean to taking the points of the Patriots here, because the Patriots are at least going to try to win the game, being at home, and try to pull off a win against one of the better teams in the AFC, probably the best team in the AFC. Well, it's between them and Kansas City, so who knows? I kind of think the Bills are a little bit better than Kansas City. But either way, Patriots, I mean, it's a division rival. Patriots will want to show up. Bills, even though they know the Patriots almost caught them 2 weeks ago, that's not enough of a motivator for the Bills here, man. The Bills are going to try to stay healthy for the playoffs. They don't want to get injured. That's the main concern here. Patriots, though, it seems like Drake May is hurt. I mean, he got hurt last week during the game against the Chargers, but he didn't leave the game for very long. He was back in the game, and I won on the game. The Chargers won the blowout, but it seems like the Patriots are kind of playing it safe with their quarterback or whatever. So it seems like Drake May is not going to play for the Patriots in this game, and it's going to be Joe Milton at quarterback. So how do you handicap this game? It's beyond me, but I believe that the team that really is the team that is going to be the team that cares about winning the game more is going to be the Patriots. So the only way that I would play this game if I was going to play it would be to take the points of the Patriots. But obviously, like I said, no way I'm going to do that. Next up is one of my plays, and that is the Chicago Bears plus 10. I'm going to come in and take the Bears here, man. The Packers, they're laying a lot of points here, and that's just because the odds makers are lining this like the Packers are going to show up and play a full game here, and I'm not convinced that they're going to do that. The Packers, I mean, their line is a huge favorite for that reason. They're probably even more of a favorite than they should be. Up from 10 to 10 with juice. You might even be able to get 10.5 on this with the Bears. 88% of tickets, 95% of the cash on the Packers. You know the public's going to be coming in on the side of the Packers here. Obviously, the Bears have been complete ass. But the Bears, remember, they played pretty well against the Packers early. They played pretty well against most of their division foes this year, but most of the games they played well were the home games. But they did play well at Detroit on Thanksgiving too. So the Bears, for the most part, they've been pretty competitive against division foes. So the Bears, I mean, they've been a dead team for a while now, but the games that they do show up for are games against division foes. The Bears have extra time off here, man, because I'm pretty sure they played in that Thursday game, right, against the Seattle Seahawks. The last time they played was last Thursday in that really ugly game, which was a 6-3 loss for the Bears. I mean, I think the Bears are going to be extra motivated for this game because of how that game ended too. Their home crowd was booing them in their own stadium because they were such ass offensively. So I think that's another motivator for the Bears here as well. The Packers, what do they really have to play for in this game, man? So the Packers have less rest. They're coming off a game against Minnesota. So the Packers had that really crazy game against Minnesota where the Packers were losing that game by a lot. Both of the games are similar against Minnesota, where the Packers were out to a big deficit in both games. I thought the Packers would win this game against Minnesota this time because the first time they played against Minnesota, Jordan Love was coming back from injury. So he started a bit slow. And then once he got going, he really got going. And Green Bay, after they were down 28-0 in this game, I'm pretty sure they only lost 31-29. But then in this game, they were behind by multiple scores as well. And they almost were able to come back in this game too. They had a late rally as well. So Green Bay, that was a big game for them. And they showed up. And I believe that was a Sunday night game, right? If I'm not mistaken. So Chicago has extra rest for a few days. Green Bay is coming off a huge game. And what does Green Bay really have to play for here, man? They can't win the division, so they're locked into a wild card. So the only thing they really have to play for is seeding. They've already clinched a playoff spot. So the only thing that can happen, I think, is they can shuffle seeding around. But it's between them, Washington, and either Detroit or Minnesota is going to be the other wild card. But obviously, Green Bay can't jump ahead of either of them. So it's really just Green Bay versus Washington, I think, between the 6 and 7 seeds here. And, like, who cares about that? Like, I don't think that's a motivator really at all. Even though, yeah, this is Green Bay's final home game. But Green Bay just played Minnesota, huge game. And Green Bay's in the playoffs, so they're playing a playoff game next. So I think this qualifies as a sandwich spot, man. So I think Green Bay, they're going to want to get in, get out, not get hurt. They don't even care about winning this game, I don't think. Because, again, does it really matter if you're the 7 seed or the 6 seed? I mean, you'll be playing a different opponent, but I don't know that it really matters that much. I mean, yeah, it's the difference between playing like the Philadelphia Eagles if you fall to the 7 seed, or I don't know who the 6 seed is going to be. It'll be an easier opponent, I guess, probably. Or no, Green Bay will be this. If you are the 6 seed, then you wind up playing the 3 instead, which is going to be who's the 3 even going to be? I don't even know. The winner of it'll be like the Rams, basically. So, I mean, it's pick your poison, basically. You're going to have to either go to Philadelphia or go to the Rams. Like, that's what you're playing for here. I don't think that's enough of a motivator. I think Chicago's going to show up. Chicago has been so bad, man. I mean, they've lost so many games in a row. Look at this. They haven't won since this game against Jacksonville in London, which was, when was that? October? Who knows? But Caleb Williams basically since way back then, he's only thrown one interception, and it was on literally the last play of the game against Seattle, just chucking it up, trying to do something. He threw an interception. So he's actually been not making mistakes, although, of course, Chicago's been getting sacked constantly. They give up a ton of sacks. So that's the one thing with them. But you're just asking them to stay within 10 points here. I know Green Bay will remember that Chicago almost was able to beat them, and Green Bay actually had to block a game-winning field goal from them. And I won money on that one. I had Chicago plus the points there, which was a 5.5-point line or something like that in that one. So this line now being up to 10 is about what you'd expect, I guess, flipping from venue to venue. Maybe actually still a little bit too high. I think the 10 is worth it, man. I think Green Bay really does not have a whole lot of motivation in this one. I think it's a sandwich spot. They care more about the game that happened before it, the game that happened after it. Chicago, I mean, I think they really want to try to get a win to end the season, man. They don't want to end the season on this horrific note, losing so many games in a row. I expect effort out of Chicago on this one. They're getting 10 points. I mean, when Chicago puts in effort, they do have the talent on defense to hold opposing offenses in check. So hopefully that's going to be the case in this one. Give me the Chicago Bears in that one, plus 10. And Chicago also has extra rest, like I said. And everybody saw them look like ass in primetime, putting up 3 points in front of a national TV audience. No public bettor is going to want to play Chicago after they saw them do that. And they saw Green Bay play really competitively against Minnesota, I think also in primetime. So the public's not going to want anything to do with it. But again, Green Bay really doesn't have a whole lot of reason to play that hard in this game. And they got to start thinking about we're in the playoffs, so we don't want to get our guys hurt. Don't want to get Jordan Love hurt. Give me Chicago plus 10. Bears are 0-7 in away games. Yeah, but you also don't need them to win the game. You only need them to cover the number. Which what are they against the spread on the road? I don't even know. I mean, I could try to check real quick here. Let's see. I don't know if did they cover this Houston one and the Indy one? I don't know. They may have. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go through all of these and actually try to figure this out. What was the line in this one? Where's the number? Come on, ESPN bet. Where are you? There's usually there's the widget. Yeah, they covered that one plus 6.5 against Indy. Where was it? I'm going to try to go through this real quick, even though this video is going to be crazy long. That was only 2.5, so they did not cover that one. They didn't cover against Washington either, because I won money on Washington in that one. Didn't cover against Arizona. They covered on Thanksgiving against Detroit. Didn't cover this one. Didn't cover this one. So, yeah, I mean, not good, but, I mean, they've covered, 2 or 3 games on the road at least. So, I mean, that's better than the 0-7. But, again, this is probably, this is one of the biggest lines you're going to see for the Bears all season. And they can at least play defense if they actually want to show up and, put in effort. And their defense wasn't that bad against Seattle in their last game. So give me the Bears, like I said, plus the points in that one. Next up, I'm trying to go with all these 1 p.m. games. Jags Colts, best game of the weekend, baby. Colts sitting at a 4-point favorite. Is this the only game that doesn't have any playoff implications, at all? Doesn't have any playoff teams even playing? I'm not sure. It very well actually might be. That's crazy. That might be I think that's the only one. Jags Colts at Indy. Indy's sitting at a 4-point favorite. We don't know what's going on here with Indy, man. Anthony Richardson, he's not coming back. So he's dealing with some bad injuries. He's crawling around. I don't know what's going on with his leg or his back or whatever it is. He's looking like he's having some real issues there. So he's not going to play. But I think Indy is also deciding to not play Joe Flacco in this game. He played last week and he made some mistakes and they lost to the Giants. So just because the Colts lost to the Giants, I kind of expect them to kind of show up just to finish the game off on a winning note in front of their home crowd. So that's kind of what I would think about this game. But, man, I really don't know. So Richardson's not playing. Let me see. Colts roster. I saw who they were going to play at quarterback. I keep forgetting. A lot of these teams playing third-string quarterbacks, man. Maybe they are actually playing Flacco, because I don't think they're going to put in Sam Ehlinger in this game. Maybe they will. I don't know, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it actually will be Flacco in this game. I think probably it will be. I mean, if their line is a 4-point favorite, I don't even know, though. Who knows? But the public is actually coming in on the Colts side and less of the cash coming in on the Colts side. But the Jaguars, Man, I mean, I guess both these teams are going to probably at least kind of want to finish the season on a positive note, I guess. It's a division rivalry, so maybe both teams will show up in this game. I mean, players are playing for their jobs and stuff, but Jacksonville is coming off a win against Tennessee, and Indy's coming off a really horrendous loss, which it was a loss that I think clinched their elimination, though. So does that mean Indy's going to be in a dream crusher spot? Do they really think they can make the playoffs? I don't know. I think in a way, they know that game was really ugly. I think they outgained the Giants in that game, and they just had way too many turnovers. So maybe if that was, it was Flacco in there. So maybe if Flacco's playing again, maybe he'll want to play a bit better this time and redeem himself. This is a very difficult game to handicap. I mean, this is a game only like a lunatic would try to bet this game, in my opinion. I mean, unless maybe there's some angle on playing the total or something like that in this game, but I really don't know. And then for the Jaguars, I assume it's still going to be Mac Jones at quarterback there because Trevor Lawrence is out for the season. So, oh boy. Man. Yeah, again, I don't know what to think about that one. That's a game almost not even worth discussing. We got Panthers, Falcons. Falcons, I mentioned them a little while ago. They're up from 7.5 to 9 now. Again, I think you're probably laying too many points at the Falcons here. 78% of tickets, 82% of the cash coming in on the Falcons. Now, here's the issue with this game, though. So this game is going off at the same time as the Buccaneers game, and the schedule makers are doing that for a reason, because that means that the Falcons don't know what the fate of the Buccaneers is. So I actually think the Falcons are actually a better side than the Buccaneers are, because the Buccaneers, well, I think they're laying too many points. So the Buccaneers, again, they control their own destiny. So it's all up to them. The pressure's kind of on the Buccaneers, whereas the Falcons, they're playing at the same time. They can play a little bit looser because they know that, yes, they have to win. It's a must win, but their fate is determined by the Buccaneers. They need the Buccaneers to lose, which they probably think is likely to not happen. So I think the Falcons can come out and actually play loose here. The Falcons didn't play well they did play well at Carolina when they played. So they did blow out Carolina. So I think Carolina's going to show up too, man. I mean, Carolina, they have reason to show up here and may want to spoil the Falcons season, although it's not going to be really spoiling it if the Buccaneers win anyway. But still, I mean, you got young quarterbacks going on in this game, man. I mean, you got Bryce Young, a lot of young players here. Bryce Young has a lot of young talent around him on that roster. Falcons are now going with Michael Penix Jr. So, I mean, those guys are going to want to show up and play, man. So it's going to be a battle of young quarterbacks in this one. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And Panthers, remember, are without Chubby Hubbard, Chubby Hubby, whatever. I think his name is Chuba Hubbard. So the Panthers lost him to injury, so I think he may not be back. So the Panthers are going with some like really inexperienced running back tandem. So the Panthers may really not have much of a ground game in this game. So that is definitely an advantage to the Falcons. I'm keeping an eye on this New Mexico game too. It's a pretty good game, actually. Looks like it's close. New Mexico back up 3 here. But I slightly lean to the Falcons in this one just because I think they can play a little bit looser and they actually have a complete team here, whereas the Panthers, I mean, without a ground attack, it's going to be pretty difficult for the Panthers, in my opinion. So slight lean to the Falcons, but obviously no play there. Next game up is a play for me. Oh, yeah, that's right. 49ers and Cardinals is another irrelevant game. You're right. As far as those teams are both eliminated, you're correct. I should have known that because I'm playing that game too. But I am playing the Dallas Cowboys here, plus 6.5. We can call it now, but I don't know if this game's going to hit 7. It might, because Washington is very public here, man. And this is a similar situation to the Packers, where I just don't see where the motivation really is going to lie for Washington in this game. 83% of the tickets and 86% of the cash laying this huge number with Washington. Washington was like a double-digit favorite at home when they played the Cowboys. We know the Cowboys actually did win that game. So is Washington really going to care that much about revenge, road revenge? I think the road revenge angle works a lot better when it's not the last game of the season, when that road team is not already looking forward to the playoffs and that road team is an underdog, and none of those are the case here. So even though, yeah, Washington probably remembers that Dallas went into their place, and this was after Dak got injured. This is with Cooper Rush. Dallas went into Washington as like a 11-point underdog or something and won the game outright with that crazy ending. So yeah, I know Washington's probably going to remember that, but I just don't think that in-season revenge is enough of a motivator here, man. It is the Dallas Cowboys, but I mean, come on, man. It's the Dak-less Dallas Cowboys with Cooper Rush. Washington, this is a young team with a rookie quarterback, and what did they do last week? They played in prime time. Oh, actually, by the way, I think I was wrong. The Green Bay and the Vikings was not prime time. It was a 4 something p.m. Eastern game last week, but my handicap still stands on that one. Washington clinched a playoff spot last week with that wild win where I lost on the Falcons plus the points in that game. That was a crazy game on Sunday night, and Washington clinched a playoff spot. And this is a team that's not used to being in the playoffs, man. This is Jaden Daniels' rookie year. A lot of young guys on this Commanders team, Redskins team. Got to keep calling them the Redskins, man. They might wind up being called the Redskins again. But this team, again, it's a young team. They clinched a playoff spot. Really, all they're playing for now is seeding against the Green Bay Packers, man. So like I said, not a whole lot of motivation there other than the fact that, like, how motivated are you going to be to avoid having to play the Eagles? Or do you care more about getting into the playoffs healthy? I think that might be what they care more about. And they're laying a boatload of points here, man. Even though I know Washington was laying like 10 or 11 at home, this line should probably be maybe a little bit lower than this, I would imagine. And Dallas, these guys are still playing for their jobs, man. Mike McCarthy is still trying to not get fired. I don't know how he hasn't been fired already, but the Cowboys, this is going to be their final home game. The Cowboys, they have not quit on the season. So this Cowboys team, I do expect them to show up in this game to close out the season with on a decent note here. It is a division rivalry at the very least. It's at home, where I know the Cowboys haven't really been that good at home, but they're getting a lot of points in this one, which has been a better position to take them in. And I mean, they've won 4 of the last 6 games, man, and they've been pretty competitive, but also they're coming off maybe their worst game of the season, aside from the Detroit game, I guess, losing at Philly 41-7. So when you get embarrassed like that, I think that's another motivator, man. You get one more game. You don't want to end the season on an ugly note, man. You want to redeem yourselves from a horrendous looking loss like that. And that was a Philly team without Jalen Hurts in that game. That was with Kenny Pickett in that game. Pickett didn't even do anything in the game. Cooper Rush actually had more throwing yards than he did. Basically, it was all ground game for Philadelphia, and it was all turnovers. I mean, Philadelphia, they did decent yardage-wise in this game, but Dallas was -4 in turnovers in this game. So this game was not really statistically as much of a blowout as the scoreboard might tell you that it was. So again, Dallas, I mean, they made a lot of mistakes. They may try to fix some of that and make less mistakes in this one. And this is still, again, this is a Washington team that has really a pretty bad defense. And you're getting a team that really doesn't have that much motivation here with a bad defense, laying points on the road. You know, I don't like that. I would go as far as to say that the Cowboys have the better of these two defenses, and they're at home getting points. And again, Washington really does not have a whole lot to gain from playing in this game. So give me Dallas plus the points in that one. I don't know if it's going to get to 7. Obviously, that's a key number if you can get the full touchdown, but I like it. Give me Dallas. The over looks interesting in it. Yeah, Dallas's defense is bad, but Washington's is worse. What's the total on this? It's 44.5 down to 44. Very public over. 89% of the tickets, 90% of the cash. I would hesitate on the over because I don't know if Washington is going to do their part offensively in the game, man. That's the problem. Like, again, when it's a spot where it's just get in, get out, you really have not a whole lot to gain. You might not even see Washington play their starters for the full game in that one. So I would hesitate to look to the over in that game. And what else we got? Am I done with the 1 p.m.? Let me see. No, Texans, Titans. Titans are up from pick them to a 1-point favorite. Texans, extremely public. I mean, the public, again, they're idiots, I think. They're going to come in and look at this. Oh, my God. Pick the winner. Texans are actually getting a point against the Titans. Like, what gives here? Well, I mean, I think what gives is obvious, is that the Texans, I am pretty sure they're locked into their seed, right? I don't think they can advance. The Texans are I believe they are the 4 seed, and I believe they cannot get out of that spot. So I don't think the Texans have any reason to show up in this game. Yet they're very public. 76% of tickets, only 58% of the cash, though, because they think the actual like pros that are playing this game know that the Titans probably are the only one of these two teams that has really much of a reason to show up here. Titans, again, up from Pick'em to a 1-point favorite. You could argue that maybe the Texans are playing for revenge, because this is another spot where both Washington and Houston are both on the road here, playing against teams that upset them on their own turf earlier in the season. So the Titans actually went into Houston and pulled off an upset against them. But is that enough of a motivator for the Texans to show up here and play really hard on the road against them? Again, I don't really think so, because they're gearing up for the playoffs, man. They know they're in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure they can't even advance seeding, because, again, if they could, they'd probably be a favorite in this game against the Texans. So the odds makers are lining it this way because they know the Texans don't have much of a reason to show up here. I'm not sure that the Texans starters are even going to play much in this game, really. So I would only look to the Titans side in this one. Titans, we don't even know if they're going to go with Will Levis or Mason Rudolph or some combination of both, but they're actually both fighting for the job, right? So whichever quarterback or quarterbacks the Titans use in this game, they're going to try to win, because they're fighting for a starting quarterback job. So I expect motivation from the Titans, man. And just to finish the season off with a win in front of their home crowd. Texans, they have more looking ahead to play for, even though the Texans, we know that they actually have way more rest here. They've been off for a long time because they last played on Christmas Day and they got obliterated by the Ravens. But is that enough motivation for them to come and show up in a meaningless game here to them? Again, I don't think so. And the total's sitting at 36, up to 36.5, 54% of tickets on the over and 60% of cash on the under. I don't know what gives with that, but I mean, the total is so low. It seems to be indicating the Texans may not be playing their starting offensive players in this game, because that total is very, very low. So that is a weird game as well. And then who's the other team that played on Christmas? It was, Kansas City was the other one. Yeah, I haven't gotten to them yet. All right. And then that's it for the 1 p.m.s. 4 p.m. What am I up to here? I'm almost up to an hour. All right. This is going to go an hour and a half. Dolphins Jets is the first 4 p.m. game up here, 4:25 p.m., whatever. Dolphins are down from 2.5 to a pick 'em. 67% of tickets are on the Dolphins, but the line is moving against the Dolphins. We got 51% of the cash coming in on the New York Jets, man. And I do lean to the Jets in this game. I mean, the Dolphins, yes, they're not eliminated yet, so they aren't a must win. And it's one of those must wins where they don't control their own destiny, because the Dolphins, I believe, need the Broncos to lose. So I'm pretty sure the situation is the Bengals need to win, and they need both the Dolphins and the Broncos to lose. I'm pretty sure, but you can check me on that. But I know both teams definitely need the Broncos to lose. So the Dolphins need the Broncos to lose. They're playing at the same time for that reason. So I said, in a way, that doesn't mean the Dolphins could show up and just play loose in this game, because they don't control their own destiny, even though it is a must win. However, Tua is not playing in this game, and that's why the line is where it is. I mean, if he was playing, the Dolphins would be probably a little bit more of a favorite in this game, maybe even like 3 or so. Dolphins, I believe, were about 6.5, maybe 7 when they played at home against the Jets. The Jets actually took them to overtime in that game. So does that mean the Dolphins are going to remember that and have reason to show up in this game for that reason? I don't think so, man. I think revenge kind of gets thrown out the window in this week. It really comes down to the playoff motivational angles and stuff. But then the Jets, I think the Jets are going to show up in this game, man. I mean, they're playing against a division rival. They've had a bad season. It's their last game of the season. I think Aaron Rodgers is still going to be there playing in this game. And I started watching the Aaron Rodgers Netflix documentary there, and dude, I mean, I think the hate is just crazy. Like the mainstream hate that's out there for Rodgers. I've always liked Rodgers. I still like him. I like him even more because of his being a contrarian and not getting the vax and stuff. I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers fan, and he really has not put up bad numbers this year, especially for a 41-year-old coming off a torn Achilles. He's got like 20-something touchdowns and fewer than 10 interceptions this season, something like that, and 3,500 yards or so. I mean, he's putting together a pretty good season given all the circumstances around it. I mean, it's not even that much of a drop off from some of his other, like, non-prime Aaron Rodgers seasons. So the hate has gone too far, man. And Rodgers, based on that documentary, it does seem like his team does rally around him and they do want to try to win. And I think we've seen that out of the Jets down the stretch this season. They seem to continue playing, especially when they get a division foe. They didn't play well last week, yeah, but they won against Jacksonville. They played really tough against Miami. They played pretty tough in a couple of games before that as well. But now they are coming off a blowout. And again, kind of like what I said with Dallas, when you're coming off a blowout like that and now you're having a final home game and it's against a division rival, and the Jets might have a little bit more motivation here because they could spoil Miami's season by knocking them out. They can officially eliminate Miami by winning. So I think the Jets would want to do that. And again, they want to bounce back from a really ugly performance against the Buffalo Bills last week. So, the Jets have the talent to compete here, especially against a Tua-less Miami team. Miami really doesn't have a very good defense. So the Jets, even though they've had offensive struggles, they do still have a lot of talent on that offense. They should be able to put up some points, just like they did last time against a Miami defense that's not that good. And that previous game where they took Miami to overtime, Tua played in that game. Tua is out in this game, so it's going to be Tyler Huntley again for Miami here. And Tyler Huntley played well last week against Cleveland, but again, that was Cleveland. Cleveland with DTR, just a useless offense for Cleveland. And Tyler Huntley, he was used to playing in Cleveland, I think, because he played for the Baltimore Ravens for a while. So this is a little bit less of a familiar environment for Huntley here. So I actually like the Jets in this game. That would be the way I would lean. I'm not playing it, though. Next game is Chiefs-Broncos. Broncos up from 7 to 10.5. But the public, I think, is not going to be on the Broncos maybe enough in this one. 60% of tickets, 67% of the cash on the Broncos. Obviously, if you like the Broncos, I would have preferred to lay a 7, although I don't think the 7 was really out there for very long at all. I think it was like around 8.5 when I first saw it, and now it's up through the 10. So again, if you do like the Broncos, you're not getting any value anymore laying the 10.5, but I would not be surprised if they actually cover this number, because obviously the reason the number is this big, even though you are paying a premium on it, it does look like more of the cash is coming in on the Broncos than the amount of tickets as well. So some money is coming into the Broncos, but obviously the reason for this is that the Broncos need to win to get in. They control their own destiny, so it's win and you're in. And the Chiefs are benching everybody. The Chiefs, I'm pretty sure Andy Reid has already said that. Mahomes isn't going to play. It's going to be Carson Wentz. Although, again, Carson Wentz is an experienced backup and a Super Bowl winner, I believe, right? So, Nick Foles won that year. What am I saying? It was he was replacing Carson Wentz when Wentz was injured. So Wentz has a ring, but he didn't play in that Super Bowl. So my bad on that one. I should remember that. That was Eagles-Patriots that year. Big Dick Nick with the win coming from out of nowhere to lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl win. I wonder where that guy is now. He's Big Dick in somewhere. I don't know. Where's Big Dick Nick now? I don't know. Nick Foles. But anyway, yeah, the Chiefs have said they're not playing their starters. It will be Carson Wentz. Mahomes will get rested. Chiefs, they're locked into the 1 seed, obviously, so they have nothing to play for here. They're not playing for an undefeated season either because they do have 1 loss to the Buffalo Bills. So they're just going to gear up and get ready. You might say, well, maybe they should play their starters to some extent in this game, because when you have a bye that first week in the playoffs, you tend to get a little bit rusty and you have too much time off. The Chiefs don't seem to really care here. It seems like they're not doing it. It will be Carson Wentz. It's why the total is pretty low, although up from 39.5 to 40. It's why the Broncos are such a substantial favorite. Again, I think the line is too high, so I'm not going to lay the points here, but I don't want to come in and try to play the Chiefs either, and the Chiefs really have nothing to play for. And it's a situation where the public is going to look at this and they're going to think the number is too high as well. So I think the Chiefs might turn into a little bit of kind of a public underdog almost type of situation there, in my opinion. So if you forced me to play that game, I would be tempted to still lean to the Broncos side. But again, do I want to be laying points to the Broncos with a rookie quarterback in a must-win situation, win and you're in? No, I don't. I don't want to deal with that pressure that the Broncos are on. And the Broncos are still a bit more of a defensive team as well. So, Broncos, they also don't need style points. Like I said, they don't need to cover that big number. So even though I do somewhat lean that way, because I don't really know if the Chiefs are really going to put in much of an effort in this game, Broncos should, but who knows what's going to happen in that game. Not going to play it. Next game up is probably the first game that I'm leaving off my card. I'm tempted to play it. Chargers, Raiders. I would lean to taking the points with the Raiders in this one. Not quite a play for me, but I like the Raiders. Chargers up from 3.5 to 4.5 here. 78% of tickets, 70% of the cash. Chargers are very public. Chargers, they're in the playoffs already. And again, this is just a matter of playing for seeding. So it's Chargers versus the Steelers, basically. Those two teams are jockeying between the what seeds are they again? The 5 and the 6, I believe, because the Broncos, if they win, they're going to get the 7. So that's what the Chargers have to play for, basically. They're playing to try to play Houston instead of Baltimore in the first week, which I know they'd probably rather play Houston than Baltimore, but is that enough of a motivator here when really I think they're going to be looking forward to having to play in the playoffs at all because they're already in the playoffs? I don't think it is enough of a motivator. Chargers might feel a little bit high on themselves as well after blowing out the Patriots last week, which was on Saturday, so they do have a little bit of extra rest. But again, the Chargers may start kind of resting their guys too because it's a situation where they really don't want to get their guys hurt. Justin Herbert has dealt with injuries this season. They really don't want him to get hurt. Dobbins, I think, is back, and he's been injured as well. So again, Chargers want to make sure that they're healthy. So I don't know that they care as much about beating the Raiders here, man. And the Raiders, I think they're going to show up in this game. I mean, the Raiders have won a couple games in a row, much to the chagrin of their fans here. The Raiders not going to wind up getting the number 1 draft pick here. They won 2 games in a row against Jacksonville and that very injury-depleted New Orleans team there. Which, man, I mean, the Raiders, they actually had like some weird, like there was some travel situation with the Raiders there where they had a delayed travel situation where they didn't even get to New Orleans on time or something, and they still won the game. But I think the Raiders are going to show up, man, because this is their final home game. Just like I said with some of these other teams, they get a final home game against a division foe, even though they can't eliminate them. But I do think that's enough reason for the Raiders to kind of show up in this game. The Raiders did lose earlier to the Chargers in the first week of the season. They lost at the Chargers. And I don't remember what the line was in that game, but I mean, this line is probably, I would say, about where it should be at the 4.5. I think it was a little bit higher than that for a little while. But the Chargers really don't have a whole lot of motivation here. And then I believe if Pittsburgh wins, if the Ravens win and then Pittsburgh wins, then I believe Pittsburgh will have the 5 seed. So the Chargers would then be locked into the 6 seed. So that's the other thing you have to worry about here, where if you like the Raiders, you want to jump on the Raiders now and take the points now, because if whatever happens in these games, so if the Ravens lose and the Steelers win, it's going to be the same type of situation for the Chargers, right? Because basically it's going to be one of those teams is going to win the division, obviously, and then the other team, I believe, is going to be locked into the 5 seed. The only way that I think the Chargers can potentially jump up to the 5 is if the Ravens win to clinch their division and then the Steelers lose to the Bengals. Then the Chargers winning would then put them in the 5 seed. But other than that, I believe it's not going to be the case. So if the Steelers win, so assume the Ravens are going to win. I think that's a valid assumption. Then if the Steelers win and they clinch the 5 seed there, then the Chargers will have nothing, really nothing to play for here, even in like the odds makers' eyes. And you'll see this line drop further. So I think you can only get like more value on the Raiders if that's the case. So I would not wait if you like the Raiders, because the line could only really potentially drop at this point. So I like the points with the Raiders here. Again, the Raiders are playing for their job. And Antonio Pierce, kind of in a tentative situation there. He was the interim coach, and now he's their coach for the time being. So these guys are playing for their jobs as well. They're playing a home game against a division foe. So I like the Raiders plus the points in that one. Let's see. And then we got Seahawks Rams also in the 425 slate here. This is a crazy line situation where the Seahawks at one point were a 2.5 point underdog. That's, I think, if the Rams had something to play for in this game, but now obviously they don't. The Seahawks are now a 7-point road favorite. 56% of tickets and 66% of the cash coming in on the Seahawks. And I would only look to the side of the Seahawks here because the Rams, they not only do they have nothing to play for, they're starting Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback in this game. I don't know when the last time he played is. I know Jimmy Garoppolo has experience. He's played on some of the biggest stages and played in a Super Bowl and in some playoff games. So he's definitely experienced and used to playing, but I don't trust Garoppolo, man. I never thought he was a good quarterback. Whenever he was in there, I was like, man, this guy just doesn't have the talent to get it done, even though I know he's probably the sexiest quarterback in the NFL. No homo, but probably true. Ask the ladies if they agree with that one, because I would even agree with that. Garoppolo will be playing for the Rams, but again, the Rams really don't have much to play for. I think they're locked into their seed, too, because they've won their division now. They've clinched their division, so that's over. So now they're coming off clinching their division. They're going to rest guys in this game. I don't even remember what happened in the first game. I think the Rams won at Seattle too, right? Where I thought that was a spot where Seattle was going to come in and win. But the Rams, yeah, they won at Seattle back in the middle of the season there. So it is also revenge for Seattle if you think Seattle's going to care about that. But I mean, Seattle, I think they want to finish the season on a decent note. I mean, they don't want to finish the season losing, although they did win 6-3. I forgot about that on Thursday. So Seattle has extra rest coming into this game. And even though they did win that game, they looked real ugly in that game. So the public is probably looking at this and thinking, laying 7 points on the road against the Rams when they couldn't even score 7 points on the road in the last game. Like, what are you doing, man? But again, I would only lean that way because the Rams don't have anything to play for. I think the Seahawks might just want to show up and end the season on a nice winning note here. It seems like the Seahawks are going to play their starters in this game for those reasons. I think it will be Geno Smith in this one. I don't know about what's the Seahawks? How do I forget? Something the third. I always say not Brandon Ingram, not Trey Murphy the third in this case. Excuse me, who I have called something the third for the New Orleans Pelicans. But the Seahawks running back, Kenneth Walker. Is it Kenneth Walker the second or the third? I don't even remember it. Got to look at his injury status because he's been injured, so I don't know if he's going to play or not. But even if he isn't, I mean, Charbonnet is their quarterback. He's been Chardonnay. He's going to be getting drunk out there. Charbonnet has been a pretty good replacement for us. I don't think that really matters either. I would lean to the Seahawks in this one. Like I said, the total's down from 44 to 38.5 with money coming in on the under to the tune of 60%, 84% of the tickets on the over. Oh boy. I mean, I don't know what to even say about the rest of that, but man, I mean, yeah, the total's gone down because the Rams are putting Jimmy Garoppolo in there, and the Rams seem like they haven't really been using Cooper Kupp recently as like either. I don't know what's going on with him. I think Kyren Williams might actually be injured as well, or at least he's not playing in this game. So the Rams going to be playing a lot of their backups in this game. The Seahawks are probably going to play their starters. So that's the only way I would look in this game, but not a play. The next game is my final play, though, like I said. And I already played this one. I laid Arizona -4. It's gone up from 3.5 to 4.5. I mean, not a huge difference between 4 and 4.5. I know it's a little bit of a pricey line to be laying with the Cardinals, but I don't think it's that crazy, and I think it is justified. It's justifiable to play this one. 58% of the tickets and cash on the Arizona side. I did see more of the cash coming in on them a little while ago as far as the percentage. I mean, something has driven this number up, and I just think this is a bad spot for the 49ers, man. I think this is a spot where you fade the 49ers. I mean, this is a team that was in the Super Bowl last year, man, and now they're 6-10. They're done, and I think this was like their last gasp, man. They almost beat the Detroit Lions. That was a huge game. It was a primetime game. Would have been a huge win last week. So that was a Monday night game too. So the 49ers are playing on a short week off a Monday night. That, again, I think that was their last gasp. They put in a huge effort in that game, potentially could have won that game. They wound up losing the game, and now they have to go on the road and play Arizona to finish the season. I just don't see San Francisco showing up for this game, man. I think this was the game they really showed up for. Now they get Arizona on the road. They did lose to Arizona at home, so is road revenge enough here? I don't really think so. And San Francisco's got a ton of injuries right now. I think we're still looking at Christian McCaffrey not playing. We're looking at, I don't even know, Brandon Ayuk's not coming back. I don't know what else is happening in this game, but we do have some injuries on the other side too. I mean, the Cardinals are without James Conner, so he's not playing in this game. But again, running backs are a little bit more plug and play, so we'll see. what happens as far as that's concerned. I think that's a little bit of less of a big deal, though. 49ers, we know their injury situation is kind of crazy, man. And they're without a bunch of guys on defense, too. Without like Greenlaw and a couple other guys there. So San Francisco has a pretty decent amount of key injuries here, man. They're one of the most injured teams in the NFL. And coming off that huge effort like that, I just don't see it. Arizona, I think they'll be pumped up to play against the 49ers, and the public's probably not going to want much to do with Arizona. I mean, they just saw San Francisco almost beat the Lions, and Arizona last week played on Saturday, and so that was kind of a publicized game there, kind of an isolated game that people were watching on Saturday, and they lost 13-9. They covered. I said they would cover, and they did, but that was just a horrible, ugly game. You're getting Arizona off of that. Who's going to want to play a team that lost 13-9 to the Rams, to lay points even up against the San Francisco team that just lost 40-34 or whatever in prime time against the Lions? I mean, San Francisco looked so much better than the Cardinals did. I think the public is going to think there may actually be a little bit of value taking the points of the 49ers, and obviously I don't think so. I think Arizona being back home, they haven't been home since this win against New England. They haven't had a lot of home games recently at all, man. I think Arizona's going to show up. It's a division rival. It's the team that won the NFC last year. I think that's motivation for Arizona. They don't want to finish on a losing note. I think they're going to want to show up and win this game. They got the 49ers coming into their place. They've played well against the 49ers. One thing you can say, they've beaten the 49ers on the road. I think each of the last 2 years, they've played pretty well. And at home, they haven't been that bad at home either. They blasted the Rams at home. They did lose to Detroit and Washington. But, I mean, what can you do? They beat the Chargers at home, the Bears at home, the Jets at home. And then New England at home. So they've beaten up on some of the lesser teams for sure. I mean, San Francisco's maybe a bit better than some of those teams. But what's their record at home now? It's what did I just say? I mean, they have a winning record at home at the very least, I'm pretty sure. Let me see. What is it? I don't think it says here. It might say on this screen here. Yeah, 5-3 at home. San Francisco's only 2-5 on the road. So Arizona's been a lot better at home. San Francisco's been worse on the road. Laying the points with the Cardinals in that one. The Cardinals, kid. That's going to be the third and final play that I actually have. Campbell played the starters the whole game last week. I know, yeah, Dan Campbell did, yeah. Purdy looked bad. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Purdy's very good, dude. I mean, it seems like whenever any of his offensive players around him goes down, any single one of them, he starts looking like ass. So, yeah, I mean, maybe that'll be the case in this game too, and they won't look that good. And San Francisco seems to struggle at stopping Kyler Murray too. So that mobile quarterback there, where I don't know what has San Francisco done this season against mobile quarterbacks here. Let me see. I mean, how many of these quarterbacks are even very mobile? I mean, they lost to Kyler Murray. I mean, Mahomes, I guess you could say, is pretty mobile. Other than that, they really haven't even faced mobile quarterbacks for the most part. I mean, Josh Allen crushed them. Jordan Love crushed them. Yeah, I mean, and Tua beat them as well. So San Francisco hasn't done well at containing mobile quarterbacks really either. So that's another strike against them there. It looks like Brock Purdy's actually not even playing in this game. He's out, so it's going to be Brandon Allen, I guess, at quarterback now for San Francisco. That's probably why the line has moved to where it is. It looks like it was probably going to be closer to like a pick 'em line. So I think it's not even going to be Brock Purdy in this game. Yeah, whatever. I mean, San Francisco, again, I think last week was their last gasp of the season. I think Arizona wants to show up in this game. And we have our final game that I got to talk about. Or no, I skipped Giants-Eagles. My mistake. Giants-Eagles, I mean, who cares about that game? The Giants-Eagles is at 1 p.m. I forgot about that. Eastern. My apologies, but nobody cares. Eagles down from 4 to 2.5 in this game. Public coming in on the Eagles, man. The public doesn't buy the Giants, even though the Giants beat my Colts last week and eliminated them. Drew Lock actually finally had a decent game, but the public is seeing this. I think the public thinks there's value laying the points of the Eagles here. 82% of tickets, 73% of cash on the Eagles, but I believe the Eagles are locked into their seed. I think they're locked into the 2 seed, and Jalen Hurts is still hurt, so he's not playing. So, I mean, both of those factors. I mean, obviously the Eagles are resting their starters, man. There's no way they would be a 2.5 point favorite if they were playing, even if it was just Kenny Pickett playing a quarterback instead of Hurts, if that was the only personnel change, the Eagles would still be like a double-digit favorite against the Giants at home in this game. So the Eagles are just resting everybody in this game, man. That's the case here. I would only look to play the Giants in this game. I'm not going to do it. I mean, obviously, I don't trust the Giants. So the Giants at least showed up last week. So that shows me the Giants are at least trying. And for a game against the Eagles, the Giants are probably going to show up for it, man, against the team that's already won their division and, one of the best teams in the NFL. The Giants probably will be motivated to show up for this game. The Eagles are trying to get healthy. So again, obviously, Jalen Hurts isn't playing. He's still hurt. Hurts is hurt. It'll be Kenny Pickett in this game. And it'll be a bunch of Eagles backups, I'm pretty sure. I saw it come out. I'm pretty sure Saquon Barkley was saying that he wanted to play, but they said, no, you're not playing. We're going to rest our starters. And he was not too happy about it because I guess there might be some records he's trying to go for, something like that. But I guess he accepted that he's not going to play in this game, something like that. So the Eagles, they're locked into their seed. They're resting everybody. So I would only look to the Giants in that one. And then, of course, we have the big game, the game that has the most implications, I guess, arguably. Vikings-Lions is, of course, the night game, Sunday night at 8:20 p.m. Eastern at Detroit. Detroit's down from 3 to 2.5 with juice. Vikings, to me, seem like they're a little bit of a public underdog in this one. 60% of tickets and 64% of the cash coming in on the Vikings. I've been a Vikings naysayer all year, man. And when it comes down to it, I think there are more reasons to lean to the Lions in this game than to the Vikings, even though I'm not going to do it. I know the Lions did win at Minnesota. I actually played Minnesota in that first game, and it did not work out for me. I thought it was a better spot for the Vikings in that first game, and it was a close game. Vikings lost to the Lions. That doesn't mean it's revenge for the Vikings, but revenge, I mean, this game is a huge game. Revenge doesn't matter in a game like this where both teams are really going to show up anyway, because this game determines the 1 seed in the NFC and who wins the NFC North. And of course, the team that loses this game drops to the 5 seed, which is just insane, man. That you're going to have a 3-loss team being the 5 seed and then playing on the road at probably Tampa Bay. I mean, that's just disgusting, dude. The NFL needs to change this. No more automatic home games for the division winners, man, because I don't think I've ever seen a situation this extreme. We've seen a few before. There was that one year where Seattle got into the playoffs as a 7-9 team with one of Pete Carroll's first years there, and the public really was dissing Seattle, and I was like, I'm going to take Seattle plus the points here. They were a 7-point dog at home against Drew Brees New Orleans Saints team. The Saints were the Saints had fallen into a wild card, I think, and had to play. They had a way better record. They were 10-6 or 11-5 or something as a wild card, and they went to a 7-9 Seattle team. If I remember this correctly, that was one of the most extreme that I've seen. I took Seattle plus 7.5 or something in that game. They won the game outright because everybody was just saying there's no way they should be hosting it, no way they should be there. I mean, it is still true, though. You take a better team and you put them in a bad situation. I mean, it's stupid. Hopefully the Lions do win this game because I've been a Vikings naysayer all season, man. So I would want nothing more than for the Vikings to lose this game and have to be the team that goes on the road in that first game and has to go play against Baker Mayfield, man. I would enjoy that being the case. We'll see if that happens. But all right, so let's look at the line here. The Vikings, I believe, are a 1-point home favorite last time these teams faced off. So that means that the Lions, you're being told that the Lions were the slightly better team. So that would mean that the Lions should probably be about a 4-point favorite here, but they're only 2.5. But of course, some of that is because the Lions are so injured at this point. They're now without David Montgomery. I think when they played Minnesota the first time, they still had Anzalone. I don't remember if Hutchinson was out already for the Lions or not, but the Lions are one of the most injury-depleted teams in the NFL. So that is a concern. That's the one concern. That's the main concern that I would have with the Lions. That plus Dan Campbell, as you said, moronically played all of his starters to win that Monday night game, and the game didn't matter. This game is the game that matters. Either way, they're going to need to beat the Vikings in this game to get the 1 seed and win the division. So that game didn't matter. So the Lions are on a short week, and they played all their starters. That does concern me to some extent that Dan Campbell did that. But then again, they do have momentum, at least continuing from that, even though, yes, they are on a short week, but the Vikings are also coming off a big game. So both teams are coming off hard fought games. The Vikings coming off that game against Green Bay. So both teams coming off pretty max effort games, man, high effort games. So maybe that's a little bit of a wash. And then I think it's going to come down to experience. And the experience is on the Lions side. I mean, yes, this is going to be a playoff atmosphere. So you want playoff experience here. Yes, both coaches have some playoff experience. Dan Campbell, I think, has a bit more of it, even though hasn't been around for that long for the Lions. But Kevin O'Connell for the Vikings, I mean, he's been in the playoffs maybe a couple of times, but Vikings have not actually fared well in those games. And of course, that was with Kirk Cousins and whatever. Dan Campbell, I mean, the Lions actually have some playoff wins now after last year as well. They made, of course, the conference championship last year. So we're looking at the experiences on the Lions side, man. I mean, they have the more experienced coach, and of course, they have the way more experienced quarterback, which I think in a game like this, experience does loom large. So you're going to be looking at Jared Goff here at home up against Sam Darnold, who is not used to playing in an environment like this. He is not playoff experienced, man. So I think that, yeah, you're getting the much more experienced quarterback here, and I think the better quarterback in Jared Goff here. I would not overlook the experience factor in this, man. And the Lions, of course, they have a lot of guys who were on the team last year. They have playoff experience. A lot of these Vikings players don't have as much. So I do think that is a huge factor here. No, I don't understand I understand it's like a blue collar culture. I understand. No, I mean, I get that. But again, I mean, I'm handicapping this game. Like, I have to look at this from a sports handicapping perspective here. Yeah, obviously the players want to go for it. I mean, there's no other way to handicap this. Obviously both teams are going to show up for this game. I still think the Lions probably should have not covered last week, even though they still did show up and try to win that game. That was an all-out performance from the 49ers. 49ers should have covered that number in that game. But now this game, yeah, I lean to the Lions for all the reasons that I said, especially if you're getting 2.5 and it's under a field goal. I think the experience factor is what tips the scales here. And this total is crazy high, by the way, up from 51.5 now to 56. Money has come in on the over, man. Swung it like upwards to a ridiculous degree. 88% of tickets, 94% of the cash on the over. It does look like legit money came in on the over in this game, even though it is a square play, a very public play. I would not play over 56, though. Back when it was lower, maybe, although 51 is a key number too, and it started out already over that. So I don't know. I don't know what I think about the total in this game. I'm not going to join the public on the over in this one, but I could see it being pretty high scoring. I mean, the Lions have a lot of injury issues on defense, as I already pointed out, and the Vikings defense, I think, is maybe a little bit overrated. So I could see that being the case. Again, I think it comes down to experience. That's on the side of the Lions here. Vikings having to go on the road. Basically, this is going to be like a road playoff game for the Vikings. So I really think that's kind of what it comes down to here. And I think the Lions are still the better of these two teams, even though they are injured, and the line probably should be, I would think, at least maybe 3, even if you do factor in all those injuries. The injuries haven't seemed to really pile up yet, but I don't know. I mean, the defense was underrated last year. At this point, I don't know, man. I mean, I think with so many injuries on the defense now, the defense is still not good against the pass. It has been good against the run, but they're missing some guys in the front 7 now as well. So I don't know. I mean, at some point, I think you got to expect a bit of regret. I mean, we saw it last week. Their defense was not good last week. So, I mean, Vikings is probably gonna put up some points in this game as well. But I do still lean to the Lions. I think when it all comes down to it, playoff atmosphere, I do think the Lions probably do get it done. If they control Jefferson, they should. Yeah, I mean, obviously that is kind of the key. You got to try to keep in check the most talented offensive player on the other side, which is Jefferson. And then the other thing I guess I will point out is that Aaron Jones did get injured for the Vikings last week. So I don't know how significant it is. It seems like he probably is playing in this game. I don't know if he's going to be hampered by that at all. I mean, the Vikings do a lot of different things on offense. So we'll see what happens there. That's going to do it, man. Finally, huge NFL video here from me. hour and a half. My plays one more time are the Chicago Bears +10, Dallas Cowboys +6.5, or maybe 7 if it actually gets there. I don't know if it will. Arizona -4, although you do have to lay -4.5 now. But I mean, that would, I guess, still be my recommendation on that one. That's going to do it. Thanks to all of you for hanging out. That's not nice, Tim. What are you talking about? My mom, yeah, she's old. Nate, thank you for hanging out, guys. Nate, Tim, none of you. Thanks to all you guys. And Will was in here, and Andrew. Did I get all you guys? I think maybe I did. Oh, and Scoreboard Don't Lie. I think that was it. Tim, thanks for hanging out. I waited to talk about your team until the very end there, but you stayed for the. I did it on purpose to make you stay. No, I always talk about it in chronological order like that for the most part. So yeah, thanks to all of you for hanging out, man. And I don't know if I'm going to be back right now with yeah, we're all noticers here. I don't know if I'm going to be back right away with the college basketball video or not. I mean, it's so late. I mean, I know it's the start of conference play, and I do have to handicap it, but I mean, it's like conference plays now finally in full swing for every conference, I think, on Saturday for the first time. So we'll see what I want to do about that. I don't know if I'm going to be back at like 2 or 3 in the morning here or not, but if not, I'll talk about all the college basketball tomorrow morning, and I got to talk about all the other sports as well. And that's going to do it, man. Peace out, guys. I'm Tower Gang Toad. You can follow me on Twitter, of course. Follow the Tower Gang Podcast, the most offensive, hilarious podcast out there. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. You get bonus content, live pre-show, live post-show. Get to hang out. Yeah, there's always a fat slate of hockey on Saturday as well. A little bit less NBA, I think, but yeah, there's the fat slate. And then I don't know, college football, we may be down to just that one like final bowl game there, the Buffalo Liberty bowl game, whatever bowl that is. I don't even know if that's tomorrow or not. But that bowl game is coming up at some point. I got to talk about that as well. I will talk about it. I mean, it's not a very interesting one, I don't think, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to bet that one. But yeah, whatever it is. All right. Yeah, that's going to do it. Yeah. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. You get to hang out with us in a Telegram as well. Submit to the mailbag. And again, you get live pre-show, post-show. Go follow flapper.net as well. Been promoting him all season as well. FLAPPR.net. They are the purveyors of the world's finest smut blog. I don't know if they released their winner of the Milkers of the Year award yet or not, but I was helping them run the betting odds for that. Probably it was going to be Sydney Sweeney, I would have to imagine, for the most public and nicest rack that was out there this year. And yeah, that's going to do it, man. Have a good one. Peace out, guys.